Hi friends, if you don't know this face, I'm Echo, and if you are a longtime listener, first-time caller, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell icon so you get notified when I post a new video. So for today's look, I'm going to be kind of giving you how I approach my standard drag makeup, and for this look, I'm recreating actually one of the first looks I ever did in drag. It's going to be sort of this like red and dark look around the eyes with sort of a matching lip. And I'm going to be sort of explaining how I approach my own style of makeup, and then in my future tutorials I'll be doing some work on different skin tones and different sort of face shapes to give you a really well-rounded approach to makeup, and especially with drag makeup. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is cover my brows and a little bit of my sideburns, and that's going to help to allow me to draw a bigger eye shape and to just kind of hide my hair here at the sides with my final look.
What they talk about in movies, our love is what they talk about, what they talk about. Yeah, we will walk.
And after that first layer of glue has dried, I'm gonna just cover it over with another layer of glue so that the surface is as smooth as possible. This is not a step that you wanna like skip on or rush through, because you really wanna make sure that your eyebrows and any hair that you don't want visible are nicely covered, and that that surface is smooth so that any makeup that goes on top of it is has sort of like a clean canvas to work on, or a smooth canvas to work on. Okay, so now that I've got about 3 coats of glue down, I'm gonna wait for the glue on my brows and my sideburns to be just ever so slightly tacky, like almost dry, but with just a tiny bit of tackiness to it, kind of like me. And then I'm just going to apply a little bit of a loose powder to really set that down, absorb any last amount of the moisture, and to kind of block out a little bit of that color. I'm gonna be using a super white powder to do that. You really wanna make sure that you are letting that powder sit there for a few minutes and absorb any of the moisture left in the glue, because if you don't, and you kind of get warm throughout the evening, or you start to sweat at all of that glue is water soluble, so it will start to pull off of your face and you'll start to kind of look like your face is melting. I'm gonna just take the highlight color of my foundation and I'm gonna apply it sort of over my brows, under my eyes, and in the center of my forehead. Next, I'm just gonna take the base color of my foundation and go right above that. Now I'm just gonna take a large blending sponge and blend those together. All right, now I'm gonna do my least favorite part of makeup, and I'm going to draw on my new eyebrows. So I'm going to take a dark foundation stick and a angled brow brush and draw those on. I tend not to get too stressed if they're not completely perfect, because again, it's drag makeup, and also we're gonna have some time to go in and correct with some powders and a little bit of concealer later on. And actually, another reason I like drawing my brows on so early in the process is because if they are a little uneven or wonky, you can kind of try to correct that or adjust or compensate using like the eyeshadows and the way you draw your eyes. So it allows me to kind of correct the part that I feel is the most frustrating of the process. All right, now that I've got those pretty much mapped out and filled in, I'm just gonna take a little bit of my highlight color and go underneath the brow to sharpen it up. All right, so now I'm gonna take that same white powder and I'm gonna set underneath my brows with that, and then use a sort of standard neutral set powder to set the rest of it. All right, so now I'm gonna take a sort of deep brown powder to darken up and clean up the points of my eyebrows and kind of feather that in toward the center. That'll get rid of any sort of chalkiness from the powder that I just used to set and help to kind of like blend that all together to create a really nice ombre effect. Now I'm just gonna take a little bit of white eyeshadow and pack that on right underneath the brow to really brighten the brow bone. Now I really want this look to be sort of a really warm, earthy red, dark look. And so for this, I'm gonna be using a fair number of the eyeshadows from the Huda Beauty Warm Brown palette. This is actually my first time using it, so wish me luck. So the first one I'm going to take is this sort of warm taupe color, and I'm gonna use that to start to map out my crease and then use that to diffuse into the white, because I'm gonna be using a lot of red tones, and often red, when it blends out, can turn kind of pink, and that is not the vibe I want, so I'm gonna use that to be the sort of color that that the red blends into. Okay, I'm already loving this palette. And you may have already noticed that my drag is not necessarily subtle. I'm not going for realness. So my eyes are really often very big, very dramatic, bordering on cartoonish at times. But now that I've kind of laid out that first transition color, I'm going to blend that into the white using a clean brush. Okay, next I'm gonna start to introduce some of the more red tones. This is kind of like a warm taupey brown. I'm next going to take, I'm probably gonna take just about 3 different eyeshadows to do this look, maybe a 4th if I'm feeling a little plucky. So for the next one, I'm gonna take this it's top right for me, maybe it's top left for you, the bright red. Let's do it. All right, I really want to pump up the jam on this red a little bit, so I'm actually going to take Love Plus by SUGARPILL to add some really bright red to this. All right, next I want to darken this up at the bottom of the crease, so I'm going to take sort of the dark brown in the Huda Beauty palette, this middle left, and I'm going to use a really narrow defining brush to carve out the crease. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to take my cream highlighter color and I'm going to just carve underneath here to really clean up that crease. Okay, so I've carved out my crease. I think I'm just gonna use Taco by SUGARPILL to set that down. Okay. Now I'm gonna take my cream gel eyeliner and I'm gonna draw the wing. This is always a fun process because you draw one and then you draw the other and then they're uneven and you have to go back and forth. So let's just pretend that everything's fine. Okay, so now that I've got the black gel liner down, I'm gonna take just a little bit of black eyeshadow to kind of blend that in and soften it so it's not quite so sharp where it meets the eyeshadow. Now I'm gonna take a little bit of this sort of deep reddish, plummy sort of color, brown thing up here, and I'm gonna go just under my eyeliner with it. All right, I'm gonna take just a makeup wipe and kind of clean under that, clean off any of the fallout that's shown up on my face, and then move on. All right, now before I go in and finish the bottom half of my face, I'm gonna take a black eyeliner pencil and tightline the top of my eye and my waterline below. Now that I'm pretty much done with my eyes, I'm gonna just take my highlight color, go underneath it, and then fill in with my base color. Okay, I'm gonna set that all down using just a fair translucent powder, and then I can move on to contouring and blush and kind of cleaning up a little bit more of the eye makeup. All right, I have sort of finished my foundation placement. I'm going to take just a small blending brush and blend and soften the bottom of my eyeshadow here, and then I'm gonna move into contour. All right, so I'm gonna start reshaping my face, and I'm going to shorten my forehead just to make that look a little smaller. I'm going to go underneath my cheekbones to kind of carve those out, and then I'm also going to soften my jaw. So the way I like to do my cheek contour, a lot of people say go from the helix of your ear toward your mouth. I like to go from the top of my ear toward my mouth because I feel like that kind of gives you like a more pulled up, severe look. And I like to pull the brush away before I get to my mouth. I do not like my contour to go all the way to the corner of my mouth. I think that can tend to make you look sort of like a puppet almost. And I'm just gonna blend that up to soften that a bit. Now I also like to, I have a pretty strong profile, so I actually like to shorten the depth of my face by contouring sort of like down along the line of my ear. Now I'm gonna contour my jaw, and I like to kind of cut the outer edge of my jaw to make that a little more rounded, since I have a pretty square jaw. And I don't like to bring it up too much onto my face. I just really like to kind of have it be right at that line and soften up toward or up onto my face. And I do have a pretty pronounced chin as well, so I like to shorten that a little bit by putting some of my contour powder right there. Okay, I'm also going to kind of minimize my double chin. A little heavier than usual right now, so I'm just gonna kind of soften that by applying some more contour powder. And you wanna make sure to soften that line so you don't have this like big dark stripe under your neck. I'm going to apply just a little bit of a darker contour powder, again right here just to minimize my little bit of extra. Okay, so here's the thing about nose contour. A lot of queens will use like the darkest contour color that they use on the perimeter of their face on their nose as well. I personally think you want to go a little bit lighter on your nose. And the reason is if you have such like a dark concentration right on the center of your face, it can look super, super obvious. It sort of destroys any illusion that you might be trying to create. So I like to go with, like on my perimeter, I've used two contour colors. One is sort of a lighter shadow and the other is a little bit deeper. That's kind of what I used under here. I'm gonna use the lighter of the two to contour my nose, just so that is creating that effect that I want, shortening my nose, narrowing my nose, but it doesn't look as obvious as if I used the darker color. And a lot of queens like to contour with cream product. I prefer to use powders. I think, I just feel like I have better control over powders than I do cream products, and I feel like they create a sort of softer contouring blend than a cream product does. I really like to shorten my nose by putting some of the contour powder underneath. I have somewhat of a long nose, not super long, but a little longer. So I like to shorten it up there and then kind of soften those edges. Now, I don't have a super wide nose, so some queens who have a wider nose often like to contour their nostrils there to kind of like bring it in a little further. I typically don't do that, but I do like to blend my nose contour up into the crease that I created. So I'm gonna take that up there. And I typically try to do that toward the end because I often use a lot of sort of deep and bright colors in my cut creases, and I don't want to accidentally bring that down onto my nose and suddenly have blue nose contour. And again, that just kind of helps to connect everything together. You're creating the illusion of a new eye socket, and you know, your natural eye socket, your bone structure doesn't just suddenly like stop. And so the more you can do to kind of blend those things together, the more you're going to create that illusion. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of baking in a minute to soften up some of these lines and refine them a bit, but before I do that, I'm gonna apply blush. My favorite blushes of all time are La Femme blushes. I have several that I love. My favorite tends to be the color Peach. I feel like it adds a really natural warmth back to the face. And don't worry if you go a little too heavy or wild with your blush. You can always put a little bit of your translucent powder on top of it to soften it. And also your skin tends to eat blush a little bit over time. So if you know you're gonna be performing in a couple of hours, go a little more ham with your blush than you might think is wise, because by the time you get to the venue and get to the stage, it will have softened a bit. I like to kind of blend that up. I don't really wear a lot of highlight, so I don't have to worry about going up a little too high with my blush. I like to put a little bit of blush on the forehead as well. It brings just some warmth to the entire face. Not a ton, just a little. And then I like to put just a dab on the chin as well. Boop. So the next thing we're gonna do is a little bit of baking. I'm going to take my translucent powder and carve underneath my cheeks and along my nose to refine those contour lines that I just made. All right, and I'm just gonna let that set and kind of like bake in for a few minutes. I always like to do a little beauty mark, so I'm gonna just dot that on with a eyeliner pen. All right, I'm gonna start to outline the shape of my lips, and I like to turn up the corner of my lips. I like to kind of draw an extension of my lips there because my face tends to be rather severe to begin with, and then my makeup is so severe, I don't want to look too angry, so I like to kind of fake a smile. Okay, so now that I roughly have the lip shape that I want, I'm going to take a black pencil and kind of like refine and darken the outer corners, because I really need to ombre my lips in order to make this level of like overdrawn lips look in any way believable. Okay, so now I'm gonna actually go in with the lip color that I wanna use, and I'm gonna fill in this area and then blend it all into the black. Okay, I'm just gonna throw on a little bit of highlighter down the center of my nose and on my cheekbones, and then I'm gonna throw on my lashes and pull together the final look. Here we go. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon.